In the heart of Austin, Texas, where the air smelled of cedar and barbecue smoke, Lila Carter lived what she thought was a charmed life. At 32, she was a yoga instructor with a loyal following at her Zilker Park classes, her auburn hair tied in a loose bun, her smile as warm as the Texas sun. She shared a cozy bungalow off South Congress with her boyfriend, Ethan, a tech entrepreneur whose startup, Green Wave Analytics, was the talk of Austin's burgeoning tech scene. Their life together was a mosaic of farmers market mornings, live music nights at the Continental Club, and quiet evenings on their porch, sipping Shiner beers under string lights. Lila believed their love was as steady as the Colorado River winding through the city. But love, she would soon learn, could be as deceptive as a mirage in the hill country. It started with a notification. Ethan had left his phone on the kitchen counter while he showered, and the screen lit up with a ping from a dating app Lila didn't recognize. Curious, she glanced at it, expecting a spam message or a work alert. Instead, a profile preview popped up. Ethan, 34, tech innovator, looking for someone to keep up with my vibe. The photo was unmistakably him, smirking in his favorite flannel shirt, standing by Barton Springs. Her heart thudded, a dull ache spreading through her chest. They had been together for 3 years, had talked about moving to a bigger house, maybe even kids someday. Why would he need a dating profile? Lila's first instinct was denial. Maybe it was an old account, forgotten some his single days. She swiped through the app, her timbers trembling. The profile was active, with recent messages to a woman named Kiera, a graphic designer at his startup. The chats were flirty, suggestive, filled with winking emojis and plans for coffee at a downtown cafe Lila knew he frequented. Each word was a needle, piercing the trust she'd woven into their life together. She locked the phone and stood frozen in their kitchen, the smell of Ethan's organic protein shake, his daily ritual, suddenly nauseating. That night, Lila didn't confront him. She couldn't. Her mind spun with questions, but her heart wasn't ready for answers. Instead, she watched him closely, noting the way he avoided her gaze when he talked about his late leadings or checked his phone with a guarded tilt. Ethan was charming, with his tousled dark hair and easy laugh, the kind of guy who could pitch a startup idea to investors or charm a barista into a free coffee. But now, his charm felt like a mask, hiding a stranger she didn't know. Days passed, and Lila's suspicion grew like a weed in her chest. She started noticing inconsistencies. A new cologne she hadn't bought, a receipt for a cocktail bar she'd never been to, a sudden interest in team-building retreats that kept him out late. She wanted to believe it was nothing, that she was paranoid, but the dating app messages were seared into her memory. She needed proof, something undeniable before she could face the truth. One Saturday, while Ethan was at a pitch prep session, Lila drove to his startup's office in East Austin, a trendy, converted warehouse with succulents lining the windows. She parked across the street, her old Honda blending into the eclectic mix of food trucks and murals. From her car, she saw Ethan step out, not alone, but with Kiera, a tall woman with a pixie cut and a leather jacket. They laughed, their shoulders brushing as they walked to a nearby taco truck. Lila's grip tightened on the steering wheel, her breath shallow. It wasn't just a fling, it was a betrayal, played out in broad daylight, as casual as a Saturday brunch. She didn't pry, not yet. Instead, a cold resolve settled over her, sharp and unyielding. Lila wasn't the type to scream or throw dishes. She was a planner, a problem solver, someone who could hold a warrior pose for 10 minutes without flinching. If Ethan thought he could betray her without consequence, he was wrong. She'd make sure of it. The idea came to her the next morning during her sunrise yoga class in Zilker Park. As she guided her students through Downward Dog, the scent of fresh grass and distant coffee trucks in the air, she remembered Ethan's obsession with his protein shakes. Every morning, he blended his organic, vegan, non-GMO powder with almond milk, swearing it gave him the edge for his high-stakes tech world. The powder sat in a sleek canister on their counter, a symbol of his curated lifestyle. Leela realized it was the perfect vehicle for her revenge. Not dangerous, but humiliating. Something to expose his deception without leaving a trace back to her. That afternoon, she visited a quirky health food store on South Lamar, the kind of place that sold kombucha on tap and bulk spices in mason jars. She bought a small packet of powdered spirulina, not for its health benefits, but for its notoriously foul taste, like swamp water mixed with regret. Back home, she waited until Ethan left for a client dinner. Wearing dish gloves to avoid any mess, she carefully emptied half his protein powder into a bowl and mixed in the spirulina, just enough to taint the flavor without changing the color too much. She refilled the canister, sealed it, and placed it back exactly as he left it. Her hands were steady, but her pulse raced, not with fear, but with the thrill of taking control. Leela didn't want to destroy him, not physically. She wanted him to feel the sting of exposure, to squirm under the weight of his own lies. The spirulina would make his shakes taste like a punishment, and she knew exactly when it would hit. Green Wave's annual team retreat at a swanky Lake Travis resort, where Ethan was set to give a keynote to investors and his team. He'd down his shake before his big moment, as always, and the results would be unforgettable. The retreat was a week away, and Leela played her part perfectly. She smiled when Ethan kissed her goodbye each morning, asked about his day with feigned interest, and even packed him a lunch one day, slipping in a note that read, "Knock them dead at the retreat." She was an actress in her own life, masking her rage with sweetness. Meanwhile, Ethan grew sloppier with his lies. He'd come home late, smelling of craft beer and a floral perfume that wasn't hers. He'd leave his phone face down, silencing notifications with a quick glance. Leela logged every detail, her patience a weapon sharper than any outburst. The day of the retreat arrived, a sunny Friday with the breeze carrying the scent of cedar. Ethan left early, his duffel bag packed with his protein powder and a new suit he'd bought for the occasion. Leela waved from the porch, her smile serene, knowing what awaited him. She spent the day teaching her classes, her body moving through poses while her mind replayed her plan. By evening, she sat on her couch with a glass of wine, waiting for the fallout. It came faster than she expected. Around 9 p.m., her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, a friend who worked at Greenwave. "You won't believe what happened at the retreat. Ethan totally lost it during his speech." Leela's heart raced as she called Sarah for details. Apparently, Ethan had chugged his protein shake backstage, as usual, before stepping up to the podium. Halfway through his pitch about disrupting the analytics space, his face twisted in disgust. He gagged mid-sentence, spitting green-tinted foam onto his pristine suit, his words slurring into a coughing fit. The audience, investors, colleagues, and Kiera stared in horror as he stumbled off stage, retching. Someone called it an allergic reaction, but the damage was done. Whispers spread that Ethan was drunk or unprofessional, and Kiera, trying to help him, was seen clutching his arm too intimately, sparking gossip about their close relationship. The retreat was a disaster. Investors pulled out, citing instability in leadership. Kiera's attempts to explain only fueled the rumors, and by Monday, the office was abuzz with talk of their affair. Ethan's reputation as the golden boy of Greenwave crumbled, replaced by snickers and side eyes. Kiera, humiliated, took a personal leave that everyone knew was permanent. Leela listened to Sarah's account with a calm she hadn't felt in weeks, her revenge unfolding like a perfectly executed sun salutation. When Ethan came home that night, he was a wreck. Pale, disheveled, his eyes bloodshot. He tried to spin a story about food poisoning, but Leela cut him off. "I saw your dating profile, Ethan, and I saw you with Kiara at the taco truck." Her voice was steady, cold. His face drained of color, and he stammered, claiming it was just a fling, that he was stressed and didn't mean to hurt her. Leela didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just pointed to a suitcase she'd packed for him, sitting by the door. "Get out," she said. And he did, without another word. Leela didn't waste time mourning. She threw herself into her work, expanding her yoga classes to include mindfulness workshops at a local studio on South First. She leased a small apartment in Bolden Creek, a vibrant neighborhood where she could walk to cafes and hear live music from her balcony. The space was hers, free of Ethan's cologne, his lies, his protein shake stench. She started running along Ladybird Lake, her breath syncing with the rhythm of her steps, reclaiming her body and her peace. One evening, at a community yoga event in Republic Square, Leela met Javier, a single dad and fellow instructor who taught kids classes at the same studio. He was quiet, with warm brown eyes, and a laugh that carried the ease of someone who'd survived his own storms. Over post-class smoothies at a nearby juice bar, he shared that his ex-wife had left him for a coworker, taking half their savings and leaving him to raise their 6-year-old daughter, Mia. Leela recognized the pain in his voice, the same betrayal she'd carried. They didn't dwell on it, though. Instead, they talked about Austin's best food trucks, their favorite hiking trails, and the joy of teaching kids to find their balance in tree pose. Their conversations grew into a routine: coffee at Joe's, walks in Zilker Park, swapping stories about their classes. Javier was different from Ethan, not flashy but steady, his kindness rooted in actions rather than words. He'd bring Mia to Leela's classes, and the girl's giggles as she wobbled in warrior pose melted Leela's guarded heart. One day, Javier invited Leela to a barbecue at his small East Austin home, where they ate brisket tacos and danced to a local band set under fairy lights. Lights. When he took her hand during a slow song, Leela felt a spark. Not the naive rush of her past, but a quiet warmth, like coming home. Months passed, and Leela's life took on a new rhythm. Her yoga studio became a haven for others seeking healing, and she poured her energy into creating a space where people could breathe without fear. Javier was there, not as a savior, but as a partner, someone who understood her scars because he carried his own. They didn't rush into labels or promises. They built trust slowly, with small gestures. Javier fixing her bike tire, Leela baking cookies for Mia's school bake sale, shared silences that felt safe. One evening, as they sat on a blanket by Ladybird Lake, watching the sunset paint the water orange, Javier turned to her. "You're stronger than you know, Leela. You didn't let him break you." His words hit her like a deep breath after holding it too long. She hadn't thought of herself as strong, only as someone surviving day by day. But maybe he was right. She hadn't let Ethan's betrayal define her. She'd chosen to rebuild, to love again, not from desperation, but from a place of truth. Their relationship grew not with grand gestures, but with the quiet beauty of presence. They took Mia to the Austin City Limits Festival, cheering for local bands under the Texas stars. They hiked Mount Bonnell, laughing when they got lost on a trail. They cooked together, experimenting with recipes that sometimes failed spectacularly, but always ended in laughter. Leela learned to trust again, not because Javier was perfect, but because he was honest. And she was no longer the woman who trusted blindly. She was wiser, fiercer, whole. Years later, at a school event for Mia, Leela ran into Ethan by chance. He was thinner, his confidence replaced by a nervous fidget. He tried to apologize, his voice low, but Leela stopped him. "I don't need it," she said, her tone calm but firm. She didn't hate him anymore. He was just a chapter she'd closed. As she walked away, Javier's hand found hers, and she smiled, not for Ethan, but for herself. Leela and Javier never promised forever, but they lived it one day at a time. They built a life of simple joys, Sunrise yoga, taco nights, Mia's drawings taped to the fridge. Leela's scars remained, but they no longer ached. She'd survived betrayal, turned pain into power, and found love where she least expected it. Austin, with its vibrant chaos and quiet corners, had been her witness, her stage, her home. And in its embrace, she learned that even the deepest wounds could heal into something beautiful.